Hello everyone, this week we are in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which used to be a Navy shipyard and an industrial complex where hundreds of ships were built and repaired, and which at its height during World War II employed about 70,000 workers. But ultimately it was decommissioned and closed in 1966. In the future, I may show you a bit more of this location as there are tours available in which you can actually see the dry docks and some other areas that are not easily accessible to the public. But for now, I just want to stay on the outside and show you two locations which are open to the public and definitely worth visiting if you are in the area. So first, let me show you the Naval Cemetery landscape. Outside of these gates, you have a busy street with a lot of hustle and bustle of the city, but inside is an area of reflection and a small getaway from it all. In the 1920s, the Navy purchased some land on which few years later a hospital was built, which remained open for just a little bit over 100 years until 1948. It treated sailors and dock workers, and especially being important during the American Civil War. However, afterwards, after the war, it even began treating regular people, regular civilians who were not associated with the Navy. And ultimately, it actually became one of the best hospitals in the nation. But along with the hospital, there was also a cemetery for those who passed away. And it is estimated that about 2,000 or so people were buried on these grounds. In the 1920s, the Navy relocated just under 1,000 graves to the Cypress Hills National Cemetery in Brooklyn. But it is believed that hundreds of graves still remain in this location. That is why when you walk around, the path itself was built just a little bit above the ground so that you do not walk directly on the ground itself, where the remains of some of the people that were buried here are still here. I think that is a very nice and symbolic touch to the design itself. It is really an interesting history behind this place. And it's not very big. As we stand here on one end, those trees that you see in the distance, that is where the path is located from the other side. So it really goes around in sort of like a circle. And as you see, it's not that big, but if you are in the area, it's definitely worth visiting and taking a look at. Okay, so now let me take you to that second location I'm talking about, but along the way, as you walk around the perimeter of the Navy Yard, there is really a lot of things to see. For instance, you see the change that is taking place. Those old factory and warehouse buildings are all being converted to the new apartment buildings, like you see the one on the left. And many of the other older buildings are for sale. So the trend will most likely continue into the future of all of these older places being repurposed and used as apartment buildings or for businesses to be moving into. So this is really sort of the story of the rest of Brooklyn as well in many places. Everything today is in a rather rapid phase of change. Along the way, you do see the remains of the past, like the cranes from the Navy Yard and the buildings themselves. Even some of the former hospital buildings are still standing and slowly crumbling to the passage of time. You also see parts of old railroad tracks, for instance, and where those paths used to run. But then, there are new businesses that are moving in and transforming the area. For instance, the Steiner Studios, which is a large film studio where lots of movies and TV shows are filmed right here in Brooklyn. Oh, another thing that you see is this. the home of Sweet and Low, the artificial zero-calorie sweetener that you see in many restaurants and in stores. Many of you might even have it at home. This is, I believe, where the headquarters are still located of the company ever since the 1950s, as the product was really developed here. And you also see a lot of art in the area as well. For instance, on this wall right here, which beautifully shows the whole history of the Brooklyn Navy Yards. It covers themes such as war, and even the contribution of women and minorities who are working here, especially during World War II, when they really needed workers. And so a lot of these social and racial lines and divisions were somewhat overlooked. And then finally, the story of it being decommissioned in 1966 and people worried about losing their jobs and eventual decline of Brooklyn. So a whole history lecture can be taught just along this wall. And honestly, a great idea for a history teacher to do so if they have an opportunity with their students. Sometimes to take them out of a classroom and show them real locations can be a lot more effective than looking at slides inside of a room. But here it is, the other place that I wanted to show you, building number 92, which is a visitor and exhibition center that you can visit, and there's a lot of really cool things on the inside. Starting with the entrance and the lobby, where you can see the anchor of the U.S.S. Austin. But in general, there's really a lot of things to look at and to see, and if you are into history, there's a lot of information here. I think they have done a phenomenal job with this place, and unfortunately, I have a feeling that many people, even my fellow Brooklynites, do not know that this place really exists and you can go inside. You have a Civil War cannon, which was meant to be installed on ships and fire a 32-pound iron ball. There is information about various ships that at one point or another were either built or worked on here, like for instance Arizona and Missouri. In fact, on the upper floor there is a piece of Arizona, the ship that was hit with a bomb at the attack of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, which brought America into World War II. The bomb itself penetrated the deck of the ship and it hit a ammunition magazine. And over 1,000 crew members ultimately died because of that. Today, the ship still lies at the bottom of Pearl Harbor, really being a cemetery and a memorial to those that perished that day on board. And Missouri. Here, there is a cool model of the ship. I mean, this is really awesome. There is a lot of great attention to details. I mean, I would wish I had something like this at home. But the ship itself is really famous, well, for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that on its deck, the Japanese surrendered, officially ending World War II. There is a model of the Monitor, which was used during the American Civil War, which, by the way, was assembled in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, just a short distance away. And there are a few other really detailed, fantastic models of ships, all of which are really sort of amazing, even if you're not into these things. I mean, to look at the attention to the details and everything sort of being created on this scale, that's pretty cool. One thing that I did forget to mention is that on the outside of the building, there is a plaque dedicated to those who died in a major incident in 1960. While working on the ship, the U.S.S. Constellation, there was a forklift that pierced a fuel tank, and the spilling fuel ignited a fire, which killed 50 people and injured over 300 others. Inside, in the exhibits, there's a lot more information about this, and I will be honest, this is one of those moments that I learned something myself, because I knew about the Constellation and the incident. However, I did not know what really started it. and some of the details that went along with this incident. So, as you walk through all these rooms, it is amazing to see the history behind this location and how much it contributed throughout the years, whether it's various wars that the United States was involved in, or even medical history and the Naval Hospital, which was operational here. So many different roads and stories go back to this place. However, by the 1960s, many businesses and factories were simply moving away from New York City, and this location suffered the same fate. There were a number of reasons for the decline, from the fact that World War II came to an end, and so as many ships as during the war were no longer needed, to the fact that ships simply got bigger and more sophisticated. Hence, maneuvering them in these waters in New York City became a bigger challenge than ever before. But in general, the 1960s was a major decline of the whole city of New York. Some of this I touched upon a little bit in my other videos, like for instance, I mentioned that the baseball teams like the Dodgers and the Giants moved away. To ultimately many industries and businesses moved away as well, because other states in the West or the South simply provided a lot more room for cheaper prices. And hence, by the 1970s, the city was really crumbling, and you can go on Google Images and see some of these famous photographs of New York City from the 1970s and 80s, the graffiti on the subway, the crumbling buildings. I mean, it looked pretty bad. And now, how lucky are we to live in a time period where we see once again the rebirth of the place, a new life and energy, which was lacking for many years. So thank you so much for watching this short video, and I hope you are having a great week. I will see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.